Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event. My name is Gisette, and I'll be your co-host for this session. We are joined today by BMS Canada, one of CMC Canada's affinity partners. BMS provides insurance coverage and risk management service to more than 700,000 regulated professionals across Canada and also internationally. Today's session is designed to help you better understand the risks and liabilities associated with your work. Before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and the recording will be available online, and we will share that with all registrants. And second, please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions at any time. We will address those in the Q&A towards the end of the presentation. We will have about 15 minutes for the Q&A portion of the session. So we will try to respond as many questions as we can during that time. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. We have Ashley Clifford, Associate Director and Registered Insurance Broker, and Bronwyn Condi-Doucet, Registered Insurance Broker as well. Together, they evaluate the risk exposures unique to management consultants and ensure CMC Canada members have access to market-leading coverage tailored to your practice. Ashley, Bronwyn, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Josette. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. My name is Ashley, and I'm an associate director here at BMS and a broker. Perhaps I've had the pleasure of connecting with you. I saw a few names that I recognized, so I feel like I've definitely connected with a few of you before. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Bronwyn, who is also a broker here at BMS. Our role is to help members understand their unique risks and make sure that you have the appropriate coverage in place to protect your work. As management consultants, you provide advice that directly impacts and affects your clients' businesses. With that comes responsibility, and if something goes wrong, or even if a client simply feels that expectations weren't met, you could be held liable. Insurance truly isn't just about having a policy. It's about protecting your reputation, your financial stability, and your ability to continue to practice if faced with a complaint or a claim. The CMC program is designed to specifically assist you with the risks that you face. So it truly is tailored to management consultants rather than just a generic coverage available to anyone. Today, we have the pleasure of connecting with you to highlight the most important areas that you should be aware of, including what is errors and omissions coverage, why do you need it, examples of how claims arise and how coverage is designed to respond, and what support is available to you as a member. So let's dive right in. So you may or may not be familiar with who BMS is. And so we thought we'd start with a little bit of background on BMS and just who we are and highlight some of our of what makes us different. So BMS does work very closely with professionals who are regulated. We've worked with over 700,000 professionals across Canada and around the world. And we do truly mainly work with associations and have a great reputation and history of working with associations like CMC, provide tailored and unique coverage solutions to those members. We offer strategic risk management and consultations. So we will be providing our contact details throughout the presentation, especially towards the end. You as a CMC member do have a dedicated phone number and email where you can connect with us, and we're happy to always do a full portfolio review or just simply to answer any questions you have, which we'll be diving into in the presentation as well. We do work with over 70 plus associations and organizations across Canada, such as CMC. We do offer dedicated claim advocacy and support. So beyond just placing insurance, we also do pride ourselves on providing ongoing support answering questions, helping, locate a document or report a claim or potential claim, or just here to support you with anything that you need. We are 100% association retention rate, which is amazing. So we do have a strong history and success with working with associations and their members. And lastly, kind of echoing on what I've said is you do have a specialized team here to support you at BMS. So, if you ever have any questions, we are here to support you, and we'll be providing those contact details as well. So some key points for today's presentation, so you know what you're getting into and what to expect. And I'll say this now, as well as I know Josette mentioned this, we will have time for questions at the end. So please, we encourage you to ask any questions you have. If you do feel like something is a little bit more unique to your practice circumstances, as mentioned, you can reach out to us and we can take that offline. That's not a problem. But for any questions, we're happy to try our best to answer those at the end. So please, we encourage it. So for today's agenda, we will be diving into what errors and omissions coverage is. If you hear me reference it as E&O, that's simply what I'm referring to. Errors and omission coverage, also known as professional liability insurance. But for the sake of today's presentation and this program, we will be going by E&O. So we'll be diving into that. And like I mentioned, some claims examples to really kind of illustrate how the coverage is designed to respond. We'll also be diving into some coverage highlights from Brandwin. So Brandwin's going to be diving into some really key elements of your policy. So it's one thing to understand, just why I need it, but there are different sublimits and different benefits specifically to your CMC E&O policy that are important to understand so that what is there for you when you need it. And, the main focus for today is on E&O. However, there are a wide range of coverages that are available beyond just E&O. So it's important to recognize that we do offer a wide range of coverages, and Brandon will be discussing that later on in the presentation. So your CMC member insurance program. So what is it and what is it doing for you? So as I've mentioned, it's not just about having a policy. It's about what happens if something goes wrong. What is there for you when you need it? So your CMC E&O policy provides members with access to specialized liability insurance as well as legal assistance. This includes not only your defense, but it also does include a complimentary access to pro bono legal advice. I'll be diving into that later on in the presentation. But when a claim or complaint is made, the insurance program steps in to assist you to cover that legal defense, as well as any settlements or damages within the policy limits. So as you can see here, you do have coverage limits available up to $5 million. There are a range of limits that are available to you. And we do sometimes get questions, what's the right limit for me? So as your broker, we can certainly help guide you on that limit. However, it's truly your decision. So perhaps you're just starting out in your practice. You may choose one of our lower limits. And then the nice thing about your policy is you do have the ability to change that throughout the year. So you don't just necessarily need to, wait until that February 1 renewal. You can reach out to us at any time throughout the year and say, you know what, I'm taking on a little bit more. I feel like I should increase that limit. We can have that discussion and always do midterm changes. So that's never a problem. We do have the pleasure of working with over 200 members each year, which, does provide stability and allows us to keep this program quite competitive. And like I said, you do have that complimentary pro bono legal advice helpline, which I have a whole slide on. So we'll be saving that for a little bit later on. But these unique benefits, they are truly what set us apart from other kind of brokers and other policies that are available out there, because it's not always guaranteed that you're going to have access to things like the pro bono legal helpline and some of the other unique features that Brandwin will be looking at later on in the presentation. So the big question, why do you need errors and omissions insurance or E&O? So this is truly what, we are here to discuss today, and what is at the heart of the program is E&O. So as consultants, you do provide advice that does shape your client's decisions. If that advice or that service leads to a financial loss, or even if a client alleges that it did, you could be held legally responsible. So even if it's something that perhaps seems frivolous or perhaps doesn't even end up going all the way to court, there, unfortunately can still have can still be overwhelming and can also still involve legal costs. So it's very important that you know that, you still report this, and we'll be going over how to report a claim or potential claim. If you feel like something has just happened and you're not clear if it's going to lead to a complaint, feel free to reach out to us. We never want you to feel like you have to face these types of situations alone. So we do, pride ourselves on being there to support you. E&O, it truly is designed to protect you by covering the costs to defend yourself, as well as those settlements or damages awarded, like I had mentioned. So even if, again, you feel like it's not going anywhere and you just want to respond right away, we can appreciate how eager it is and how much you might want to respond, the second you get notified. However, there truly are proper steps in place to protect you and designed to assist. So please reach out to us. We'll be providing those details on how to report a claim or potential complaint shortly. And it's very important that you follow those guidelines to ensure that you have the appropriate help when you need it. As I also have mentioned, there's unique risks that are going to face management consultants. We do truly understand that, we work with all different kinds of professionals, and we have different programs specifically for the profession. We don't just offer kind of a one-stop shop for all different professionals, because we recognize that you as management consultants should not be treated the same way as perhaps a psychologist, because you're going to face very different unique factors and just require different tailored coverages. So some of these are highlighted on your screen right now. So we recognize that, firstly, for your E&O, your clients are expecting accurate, effective, and, they're trying to get the outcome that they want. So they have certain expectations, and if those expectations aren't met or aren't met fully, this can trigger disputes. And sometimes those disputes can lead to civil claims or perhaps a complaint to CMC. And we will be kind of going over those claims examples shortly. Secondly, you are working with often very sensitive data. That could be financial data, strategic, or proprietary client data. And unfortunately, that can mean that you've accidentally sent the wrong email to someone, or you get hacked, or there's, a wide range of things that can happen just because you are entrusted with this information. Often, unfortunately, hackers do tend to target those professions who hold on to a lot of data, and management consultants are definitely one. So it's very important that your coverage does include, some element of that cyber or that network protection, which it does, and we'll be diving into that shortly. Thirdly is unmet client expectations. So we understand that you're often hired with perhaps very specific outcomes. And if, that's not always going to be guaranteed. Things can happen, life happens, things are often sometimes out of your control. And you just want to make sure that you have coverage there if something were to perhaps be alleged or to go wrong. And then lastly, communication or miscommunication rather. So even small misunderstandings can escalate if the deliveries aren't aligned with what your client is expecting. So again, insurance isn't there to just protect you against these types of situations. It's there to help you, because a lot of these situations sometimes can be out of your control. So it's there to help you with that. It's there to help you navigate potential questions you may have, and also there to help you just kind of mitigate your risk before something even happens. So now that I've had a chance to throw a lot of this information at you, it's very important to see, from real examples of how your coverage is designed to respond and what can even go wrong. So we're going to be going over these in the next 3 slides. We'll start, our 2 first examples will be of a civil nature. So in our first example here, we have a mid-sized manufacturing company that hired a management consulting firm to improve operational efficiency and reduce costs. After a detailed assessment, the consultant recommended outsourcing part of the company's product process to a third-party supplier. Based on the consultant's advice, the client restructured its operations and entered into a contract with the supplier. However, the supplier was unreliable, delivering late and producing substandard goods. This led to significant delays, lost customers, and reputational damage for the manufacturing company. The client alleged that the consultants failed to conduct adequate due diligence on the supplier and did not properly assess the operational risks associated with outsourcing. In this case, the client sued the consulting firm for negligence and breach of duty, and they were seeking $250,000 in damages for the lost revenue and cost associated with reversing the outsourcing decision. So if this was you and you are covered under the CMC E&O policy, your E&O policy is designed to provide coverage for not only the defense costs, so that was actual costs that you have to have a lawyer in defending you, but also those settlement or damages awarded, again, to the policy limit. So if you've selected a limit of 5 million, then you would have that limit up to in terms of your settlement costs. In our next example, we have another civil example. So civil meaning they've hired their own lawyer. They haven't necessarily gone to a complaint body, and they want to see you in court likely. So in this example, we have a national retail chain who engaged a management consulting firm to design and implement a new inventory management system, which is aimed at reducing stockouts and improving supply chain efficiencies. During the rollout, the consultants failed to provide sufficient end user training and did not offer adequate post-implementation support. As a result, store managers struggled to operate the system correctly, leading to ordering delays, overstock of slow-moving products, and an understock of high-demand items. The client filed a civil lawsuit for failure to deliver agreed outcomes. In this case, again, you have your E&O policy through the CMC program, which includes your defense costs, as well as the settlement or damages awarded, again, to that limit that you've selected. So these have been 2 civil examples, but it's very important for us to also review a disciplinary example. So in our next slide here, we have an example of a client going to CMC. So here we have a private healthcare provider who engaged a management consulting firm to conduct an operational review, which involved access to sensitive patient and financial data. The consultants began work before the client had formally accepted the written terms of reference. During the project, a consultant inadvertently emailed a draft which contained unredacted patient identifiers to an unintended recipient of another completely separate client organization. The client filed a formal complaint with the CMC alleging breach of confidentiality, failure to safeguard sensitive information, and commencing work without agreed written terms of reference, a direct violation of the CMC Code of Professional Conduct. So in this case, your CMC E&O policy provides coverage for defense costs, sublimited to $50,000 per claim and per year. And in this case, because it's a disciplinary claim, that's why we're seeing a different limit. So it's not going to necessarily match if you selected a 5 million E&O limit. This has a specific limit designated to disciplinary claims. So it's very, very important that your policy includes this element because it's not always guaranteed, and it is truly designed specifically for these disciplinary complaints or claims. So now that I've had a chance to review these different examples, we know what E&O is, why you should have it, how coverage can respond. What are you supposed to do if you actually have a claim or complaint? I'd say the number one most important thing is to not navigate this alone. I've seen it too many times where members, want to respond on their own. Again, we can very much understand the eagerness and wanting it to start. However, if you do that, it essentially jeopardizes the fact that there could be coverage there. Because if you respond, these situations can sometimes take weeks, months, and by the time the process has started, if you've already responded and you haven't notified your broker or the insurer, they may say, well, you were notified about this months ago. You have a due diligence to notify us of this right away. So again, even if you think it's a potential claim or you don't think it's going to go anywhere, you think it's going to get dismissed right away, you still can get assistance for that. So if you are aware of a potential or a true complaint, please reach out right away. This information for Crawford is also on your certificate of insurance. If you don't have your certificate of insurance or don't have this jotted down anywhere, reach out to us at BMS. But the adjusting firm for your E&O policy is Crawford and Company. So on the screen there, you do have the phone number or email. You're going to formally document the incident. So any kind of responses, any kind of emails, notifications you've got, who is involved, what you've done so far, you're going to want to document. This just ensures that you have everything on record that you've done. And then when you're paired with your adjuster, they're going to ask for these details and make sure that everything is done in the correct order. Submit any formal statement of claim or immediately report any investigations or notice of complaints. So I get the question a lot, will I be notified? Absolutely, you will. I'd say most often nowadays, it's usually by email, but there still are letters that I've seen scanned over to report. So that typically is going to be email or via the mail, but you will absolutely be notified. So again, please let us know right away, even if it's potential, because if it's potential, we have a chance to start that file for you sooner. And if it doesn't lead anywhere, then there's no issues. They simply close the file, but it just allows them to expedite the process. As sometimes it can take clients a while, they might call and say, I'm looking at the process of filing a complaint. That could take months before it actually is properly, has developed into that complaint. So it's important to notify us right away. So I had mentioned earlier that I would be saving a slide dedicated to the pro bono legal advice that you have the ability to access. So it's truly an amazing resource that all CMC members do have the ability to access. So it's 100% complimentary. You do not have to pay to access this. It is through one of Canada's leading law firms, through Gowlings WLG. They truly specialize in professional liability type of questions and claims. So they are experts. So what's amazing about this service is that it's not only there to help you perhaps before a complaint or during a complaint, but it's for questions about your practice. So perhaps you've had a question come up in regard to privacy and confidentiality. You don't know if you can send something, or you've been subpoenaed to appear in court, or you have an ethical obligation and you're just truly not sure how to navigate that. You have the phone number on your screen that you're able to call, and you can call them as many times as you need about separate issues. So you just can't necessarily call them on the same issue or question, but if you have a question one week and a completely separate question the next, you're absolutely able to use this service again. So this service, how it works, I always just like to kind of go through it to really just highlight the expectations, is you actually give them a call and you're going to leave a voicemail. So there's going to be a voicemail prompt that lets you know everything that you need to give them, but kind of those main things, your name, where you're located, and what you are calling about, because they're going to listen to that and they're going to pair you with a lawyer who not only specializes in that nature of law, but also who specializes in your jurisdiction. So if you're in Alberta, BC, Ontario, rest assured, this isn't a law firm that's just located in, Ontario. They do truly specialize in all different aspects of law across Canada. So it is something you have access to. So again, if you don't have the opportunity to jot this number down, it's also available on our CMC BMS website. And we also have it available too if you need to give us a call and say, hey, what was that number again? We'll be sharing our dedicated phone number and email as well at the end of the presentation. So this is my time to pass it over to Branwyn. And again, we will be taking any questions at the end. So thank you so much. I'll pass it over to Branwyn.
Thank you, Ashley. So now that we know a little more about how the errors and omissions coverage might respond and how to deal with a claim if a claim were to come forward, with the examples that Ashley provided in mind, I'm just going to go into some more detail regarding the policy. The errors and omission coverage would be written on a claims made basis. So this means that your active policy would be the one that responds if a claim were to come forward, regardless of when the actual incident occurred. A retroactive date would be the earliest date that an injury or damage can occur and still be covered under the policy. This act or incident that gave rise to the claim would have to have taken place either on or after the retroactive date in order for the coverage to apply. Through our CMC program, the errors and omissions coverage does not have a retroactive date. So this means that your active policy would respond to all claims that come forward within the policy period, regardless of how long ago the incident had occurred. Sometimes when you see that something's not included in a policy, you might think that this is a negative thing, but in this circumstance, this would actually be the best case scenario. Often through other insurance providers, the retroactive date on a policy would typically be the day that the policy was initially purchased. So if you were to switch providers, often you might not be covered for claims that would arise from incidents that happened in the past. However, this would not be the case with BMS. And since this insurance is written on a claims-made basis, you would require an active policy in order to report a claim that comes forward, even if the incident that led to the claim occurred in the past, which is why we have an extended reporting period included in the errors and omissions policy. An extended reporting period extends the time period which claims may be made and reported to the insurer once you have discontinued practice. A good example of this would be if you either are on parental leave or if you have retired. So automatically included in this policy would be a 180-day extended reporting period to protect you from claims that might arise from your previous practice. If you do require an extended reporting period, though, that is over 180 days, you can please feel free to reach out and we would help you figuring out a solution to that. So here are some details regarding what the errors and omissions coverage would also include. So we do also offer various limits in the errors and omissions coverage, up to $5 million per claim. And as Ashley said, often we do get questions of what limit would be the best fit. So if you aren't sure what limit would work best for you, you can feel free to reach out and we can definitely help you out with determining what limit would be best. But ultimately, the decision would be up to you. Because this would depend on a variety of factors, such as how long you've been practicing, the size of your practice, and things like that. And the premium for the errors and omissions coverage would depend on what limit you select, as well as your annual revenue. And we can also upgrade your limit at any time. So as your practice changes throughout the policy term, you can feel free to reach out. We would definitely help you out with that. The coverage territory would be worldwide, excluding the United States. But if you do have business in the United States, you can also reach out to us regarding that, and we can work with you to find a solution to extend your coverage potentially. Another question we frequently get asked would be if you would need to purchase multiple insurance policies if you were to work at different locations. So this coverage would not be limited to your place of work. So if you were contracted or working at multiple locations or businesses, your errors and omissions coverage would follow you where you practice. Included in this policy would be the disciplinary defense costs that Ashley had mentioned before in one of her examples. And this would be designed to protect you for disciplinary proceedings brought against you by the government, or if a complaint were to be made to the CMC, just like the example Ashley had provided. Often other errors and omissions policies might not include this coverage, but as you can see, it is something that could happen. So that's why we do have it included in ours. This policy would also include reputation management, where a public relations and or crisis management consultant could assist you to avert or mitigate your professional reputation in the result of a claim as well. The court attendance costs in this policy would be an element of the coverage that would respond if you are required to appear in court as a witness related to a claim. In this circumstance, you would be compensated $500 a day for each day that you'd be required to appear as a witness in court. In the errors and omissions coverage, we also have network security and privacy liability, and this would protect you in the event of a data or security breach if you were to be allegedly liable and pay compensatory damages. As we discussed, there's no retroactive date on the policy, which is actually a good thing. And also the 180-day extended reporting period, which would automatically be included. There would be a $500 deductible on this policy. And then some other elements that would be included would be the pro bono legal hotline, specialized broker assistance. So we'd be able to help you with any questions related to your insurance, as well as a specialized phone number and email that we'll put at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out to us at any time, and we would be very happy to help you out. And also, as you know, we are endorsed by and work closely with your association, the CMC. Okay, so now that we've gone over the details of the errors and omissions coverage, let's get into some other insurance options that you may require depending on your practice, as your specialized insurance needs might depend on a variety of factors, such as if you were an employee, an independent contractor, or a business owner. For example, imagine you employ administrative staff, professional staff, or engage with independent contractors, volunteers, or students who allege they've been wrongfully terminated. Or if you have to close your business due to losses from water damage, fire, or vandalism. Or a hacker accesses your confidential files, resulting in a privacy breach. So these would be examples of situations where you might require some additional coverages, such as commercial general liability, employment practices liability, our comprehensive cybersecurity and privacy liability policy, or our business package, which would include property and business interruption coverages. So why would you need commercial general liability? So commercial general liability would protect you against any claims that arise from injury or property damage that you might cause to another person as a result of your operations and or premises. An example of this, if someone were to trip over a bag that you had placed on the floor and injure themselves, or if someone were to slip and fall on a wet floor and injure themselves, or if you were working with a client in their home and accidentally break something, this would be the coverage that would respond to those kinds of situations. If you are an employee, sometimes your employer's commercial general liability would extend to you, but this isn't always the case, and sometimes it would also be limited to your place of work. So if you are an employee, we would recommend reaching out to your employer to confirm if their policy would extend to you and in what circumstances. And then if you are an independent contractor or a business owner, this would likely be a coverage that we would typically recommend. We also offer property insurance, which can be added to your commercial general liability to provide coverage for contents and business interruption. This coverage would be recommended for professionals who have a physical office space. Contents coverage would be to provide protection for your property in your office. So things typical to an office like desks, chairs, filing cabinets, computers, equipment, stock, and improvements and betterments. And the business interruption element of this coverage would be to protect you against loss of income resulting from direct physical loss or direct physical damage to your premises. An example of this would be if there was a fire that damaged your equipment in your office that affected your ability to work and you weren't able to operate, the business interruption insurance would then help you out there. We also offer a comprehensive cybersecurity and privacy liability policy with a limit of $1 million. So this coverage would be recommended for professionals who are in charge of safeguarding confidential client information and would provide coverage for theft, loss, or unauthorized disclosure of personally identifiable information. So here's an example of when this coverage might apply. So when you're checking your email, you accidentally click on a malicious link. This installs malware on your computer and potentially exposes you to potentially exposing the confidential client information you store on that device. So in this circumstance, included in this coverage would be a breach response team that you can contact if your server was compromised by malware, which would potentially expose that confidential client information. And that breach response team would assist you with any needed investigation and response services. Within this coverage would also be coverage for costs involved with regulatory proceedings relating to the violation of privacy law to protect you if a client were to report you to the privacy commissioner, for example. And it would also assist you with the costs associated with defending yourself against that complaint. The business interruption coverage, an example of that would be if a breach caused your business to be forced to shut down for a couple of days, then the business interruption would assist you there. There's also coverage for cyber extortion incidents, meaning if you were hacked and this resulted in the demand of payment to return your files, that would be the element of the policy that would respond. It also includes first-party data protection. So an example of this would be if your information was altered, corrupted, or perhaps completely destroyed, the policy would assist you with retrieving that information back. Okay, if you have employees, contractors, students, or volunteers, we typically would recommend employment practices liability. You make decisions every day that impact your employees, volunteers, students, and contractors, including hiring, compensation, promotions, accommodating disabilities, terminations, and much more. So each of these situations could lead to a claim for wrongful employment practice violation. Even if you are handling everything correctly, you could still be accused of something, even if you don't think that it's something that you did. So employment practices liability is designed for business owners to protect against these allegations of employment practice violations, including wrongful terminations, discrimination, workplace harassment, and others. And it also responds to claims made to human rights tribunals in civil court or a certifying body. If at any time you have any questions related to your insurance, such as coverage-related questions on how to report a claim, how to purchase the insurance products, or how to upgrade your policy, if your practice ever changes and you're not too sure if you do require additional coverages, you can always reach out to our team, and Ashley or myself would definitely be happy to assist you, or another member of our team. So you can feel free to give us a call or send us an email. And if you do have any questions more related to your practice, then you do have access to the Gowling Pro Bono Legal Advice Helpline as well. There. So thank you for listening, and I guess I'll pass it back to Josette, and we'll start the question portion.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Brown and Ashley. And yes, let's definitely start with the Q&A. I noticed that there are some questions already in place, so let me take a look at those. Um, and all right, let's start with Randy. For someone who has been retired for a few years and wants to take on a one-off project as a subcontractor to a non-CMC consultant, what are the options for E&O coverage at a reasonable cost?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question because we do sometimes, have members say, yeah, I'm only going to be seeing, or have one client or one contract. So do I still need like a full-blown policy? So we at BMS do only have the one program designed for CMC members. So first of all, you'd have to always be a member of CMC in order to access the coverage. So we don't have necessarily like a CMC and a non-CMC rate in terms of membership. So you would still have to be a member, and then we do have a common renewal date of February 1st. So every policy still has to align with that date. So we sometimes get questions, can I, get a short-term policy? I just have this one contract left. Unfortunately, we do have to align with that common renewal date of February 1st. So we only offer annual policies. I was just looking at the where the premiums start. So it starts as low as 105 for a 1 million limit if you're an employee. And if you do operate as a business, it would start as low as 336. So it just truly does depend also on your revenue, as Brandon had mentioned. So feel free to reach out to us and we can definitely find the best option for you. So 1 million is the lowest option we offer. So we could look at securing something like that. It's also going to be prorated. So if you didn't necessarily have an active policy already, we could certainly get one in place, and it would be prorated to align with that common renewal date. So if it starts today, August 26, 2025 to February 1st, 2026, you wouldn't pay the full premium. It would depend on how much time is left. So I hope that answers that one.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. And Randy has a follow-up question. How does one ensure that they are covered as an additional insured party on the contractor's E&O policy?
Yeah, so we do get, I'd say one of the most frequent questions we probably get, and Brandon could probably agree, is about additional insureds. We get it all the time. So I want to make sure I understand your question, because additional insureds can traditionally only be added to a commercial general liability policy. So when we get requests, because often we do see a lot of requests specifically under this program, I've been awarded this contract, they've asked to be added to my policy as an additional insured. So if that's the request you're getting, the first thing I'm looking at is, do you have a commercial general liability policy? So if you don't, then that's something we have to address first. So you have to have that CGL policy, and then we can add that third party. So we also get questions, how do I know if I have to add an additional insured? Should be very clear in your contract, or if you've sent your certificate of insurance and they said this isn't good enough, feel free to share the request with us, and then we can always kind of chat through, okay, you have commercial general liability, it's free to add an additional insured, you just have to have that policy in place first. So a lot of third parties do ask, we see it quite often, for them to be added to your policy. And adding additional insured is essentially allowing them limited access to your commercial general liability policy. So if you have a contract in place and, someone's injured and it truly had nothing to do with whoever you have the contract in place with, but they're named in a claim, they can then lean on your commercial general liability policy because they've been added as an additional insured. So I hope that helps answer. But if that
Yeah,
didn't help answer, let me know. We can always take this offline because I do find it can be a little tricky. Sometimes people call it like named insured, additional insured. We see a lot. So I always just recommend sending us any requirements you've been sent, and then we can always review it.
all right, perfect. So Randy, if that answered your question, great. If you need a follow-up, you can contact Ashley at the email that she provided before, or she will provide at the end of the presentation. And to add to that question, I just saw one more question come in about adding another party to the policy. This question comes from Judith. Does my policy cover sub-consultants who are helping me in a project?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, typically what I do in these situations is we pull up the policy wording, because your wording is actually going to define who your E&O policy extends to. So sometimes, depending on how the wording is worded, it can extend to students you may have on, volunteers. It truly depends insurer to insurer or program to program. So in order to answer that, like I truly would want to look at the wording. Often when it comes to like professionals, though, they need to have their own. So even if in the wording it says perhaps it extends to employees, if that employee is actually offering professional services, or they're a regulated professional that needs to have their own in order to practice, they can't lean on yours in that circumstance. They'd have to get their own. So often it's only going to extend to like students or volunteers who may, or like assistants who may not necessarily be able to get their own at the time. But we can take that one offline as well. And we can, of course, share the policy wording with you as well. And it very clearly will state who it extends to.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Ashley. And then we have a couple of questions that are similar, one from Robert and one from Kate. Does the coverage change should also have an issue with a US or Asian client where a liability issue arises? And the question for Kate is, do I need additional coverage if I serve clients in the US?
Yeah, so both great questions. So we typically kind of address the additional coverage in the US actually via the application, because one of our questions is we're trying to ask how, like what the percentage is of the services you're offering in the United States. So typically we've likely addressed this when you applied. So we would have tried to understand how much you're servicing in the US. Typically, as long as we have the appropriate details, it's 20% of my total services. We refer that to the insurer, and most of the time they're agreeable. We just need to make sure that that's the case first. So if we haven't had that conversation with you, please reach out. And it's just like a pretty quick referral to the insurer. We ask you a few questions. Again, mainly it's about how much of your percentage of services are being delivered. If it's 100%, then, we can again try and find an appropriate solution. But if you're mainly offering services to the US, it may be best to find a US specific policy. But if it's, 10, 20, 30%, or there's a reason that maybe it's more than that temporarily, like maybe you have a very large project in the US, but it's not normally that, then we can usually take that, explain it to the insurer for the program. And again, most of the time, I haven't seen any issues. As long as they have the reason behind it, we can usually work towards a solution and stay within the program. It's a worldwide policy excluding the US. So in terms of kind of the Asia question, as long as the complaint is brought forward and you report it under your policy, then the intent is the policy is there to respond. If it's of an E&O nature, then as long as it's been approved under the US or anywhere in the worldwide, and the insurer approves it because it falls under that E&O, then there's nothing typically additional you need to do, as long as it's been agreed upon.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Ashley, and thanks, Robert and Kate, for your questions. Let's move on to the next question. Wanda and Jeff Yes, we will be sharing the slides after the session. We will prepare an email with some additional resources that BMS shared with us that we would like you to have. And one of those resources will be the slides as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Next question is there an example where the E&O coverage did not apply or work out for a consultant? Can you please share?
Yeah, like I think I'm understanding it in terms of like something wasn't included or like a claim was denied, if that's kind of what you're getting at. There isn't anything that I'm aware of off the top of my head. I could certainly discuss it with our claims director after the presentation, but amazingly, I'm not aware of anything, which is really good. I know that our coverage is quite comprehensive, so I don't think there's anything so far since we've been on this program that's kind of triggered something to not be covered. But yeah, I know we're going to be sending some additional resources, or if you have like a specific example in mind, we could certainly take that offline.
Okay, perfect. Another question is, am I covered if I practice in a different province or country?
Yeah, absolutely. So because it's worldwide, that means it's Canada-wide as well. So yeah, if you find yourself, traveling, or you have an opportunity to work with a client in another province, as long as you're following your scope of practice and then any rules and regulations, both where you are and where your client is, then the intent of your policy is to respond. So there's no need to even reach out, or of course you can, and we can go over that again, but you don't even need to let us know. Your policy is automatically designed to follow you.
All right. And we have another question from Judith. What are the insurance options for my company if I want to enter a joint venture project with another company?
That's a great question. That one might be one that's maybe best to take offline, just because it might be a little unique to kind of your practice circumstances. There's kind of a few different questions we'd love to ask to kind of understand the nature of the relationship a little bit more. Because we, again, as kind of Brandon went over, and we didn't actually even touch on all the coverages. We kind of did the main additional ones, but we also offer things like critical illness, family cyber, things kind of above and beyond like practice specific coverages. So I think that might be one that's best to take offline.
All right. All right, perfect. And actually, if I can ask you please to enter the best contact email address that any of our members can reach out to for those specific questions or those specific scenarios, that'll be appreciated. Yes. Thank you.
I will do that. And I know there's still a few more. I think we have some time left, so we can still keep going if you guys like. I'll share my email here right now too.
All right, perfect. And in the meantime, let me go to our next question from Robert. Are you exclusively with CMC, or are you also with other professional associations like the CPA of Canada or CBV, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have a ton of other programs, actually. So a big one we're working on right now is CPA, the Canadian Physiotherapy Association. So not necessarily I think that my dad's CPA. So I think that's the Chartered Professional Accountants. I should know that. But we don't necessarily work with them right now, but we do have other programs. The other nice thing is, as much as we pride ourselves on working with associations, we do also have a commercial team. If someone kind of finds themselves in like a unique situation for like an event, or perhaps they don't have a dedicated program right now, we can always try and find a solution. So even if we don't necessarily have an existing association, we can always dive into looking into a solution. So if you have any colleagues who are looking for coverage, feel free to share my contact details with them, and we can always try and find a solution.
All right. We are down to our last two questions of today. One is, does one have to be a resident of Canada for coverage, or can one be a resident of the US while being a member of CMC?
That's a good question. So we are licensed to sell coverage in Canada. And the intent is that you are residing in Canada. However, we, again, can always try our best to find a solution. If you are 100% in the US, but you're offering only services to Canada, let's have a conversation for sure, because, that's something we can likely provide support on. If you're able to provide a Canadian address, even better, and definitely something we need to have on file. But if you're someone who's 100% in the US and maybe 100% of your services are in the US, that's where I'm kind of, what I said before, it may be best to try and find a solution that is specific to the US. It's just in your best interest.
Okay, and the last question related to that area specifically. I am subcontracting to a consultant in Ontario, and agreement is with them, but their client is in the US. Do I need coverage for the US? Currently have for Canada through BMS.
Okay, I'm just reading it here. Yeah, that is a great question. To my understanding, again, it's going to come down to what that percentage is and what that looks like. If that's like your only kind of client right now, I would say that the coverage is intended to respond. It may be something we can look into as well in the policy wording, or we could just, to be on the safe side, take those details and, if it's 10% or 20% of your services right now with that client, then we could refer it just to ensure that the coverage is designed to respond. But it's a good question and something we could take offline.
Right, perfect. And I think with that, we are about to run out of time. So I think we can close for now the Q&A. And just before we wrap up, a quick reminder that there's an upcoming workshop with Patrick Ban of BMS, CMC. This session is designed to equip transformation consultants with evidence-based methodologies for facilitating successful AI adoption journeys using advanced online facilitation techniques. Certified members will earn 4 CPD credits for registering and attending, in addition to gaining all the practical tools and strategies to enhance client outcomes and remote engagement effectively. In a moment, I will share with you the registration link in the chat. And with that, that brings us to the end of today's session. So on behalf of the entire CMC Canada national team, I would like to thank you, Ashley and Bronwyn, for accepting our invitation to speak to our members today about all the benefits and opportunities available through BMS. I am sure that some attendees are already taking advantage of these benefits, and those who aren't yet, I hope that they found today's session valuable in understanding what is available through BMS. And again, thank you to all the attendees as well for your participation and questions. Great questions. A reminder that the recording will be shared with all of you along with relevant resources that BMS shared with us. Be sure to keep an eye out for upcoming newsletters and CMC Canada events, as well as your local institute programming as well for the next couple of months, which, by the way, you can find in our event calendar page. Thank you again, Ashley and Bronwyn, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Have a nice
Bye.
day. Bye.